My name is Gergely Fabian, and I will be your host today. On this channel, we are sharing thoughts, ideas, and professional experiences. Here, we are creating a platform to exchange thoughts and ideas where we can all learn and benefit from so that we can better ourselves. We have invited Dave Ulrich to join this webinar, and we are proud that he accepted to participate. I will hand over the word to him since he has a brilliant program ready for you. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to write these down in the chat section, and at the end of this webinar, we will try and reply to the selection of questions. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel to make sure that you don't miss on future updates. Dave, would you start with a short introduction, please? The audience is all yours.
Gergely, thank you. I'm Dave Ulrich. I'm a professor at the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan in the United States and a partner in the RBL group. I am honored and delighted to be part of this channel and discussion about HR's emerging role in the coronavirus crisis. And I hope that those who are listening, wherever they are, in Hungary, in Europe, in Eastern Europe, or anywhere in the world, will find ideas that will be helpful. I'm going to begin a little bit with the end in mind. I always get the question, do you have copies of the slides? And I am delighted to share them. This is the website if you'd like to take a picture of it so you can get a copy, and the QR code so that you can get a copy of the slides. Again, it's a privilege to share these ideas, and I appreciate Gergely and his support for helping me have this opportunity. What's really different is I'm in my home. I'm in a room in my home where I have my shelves behind me, and being in my home is very different than being in person with you. And yet being at home sometimes is nice because I can share some of the more personal things about me, and I'll share some of those as we go through this conversation. So welcome to my home and to the ideas that I try to share as I make progress. As I said, I'm a professor at the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan and a partner in the RBL group. And until this year, I travel a great deal, trying to figure out what can a company do to be successful. And so in that light, I am going to talk about the HR's future value creation. And I will try to provide you a set of ideas that I hope will have impact in your life. I have 5 points I'm going to make. The first two go together. I want to set the context or the background for HR's value added and try to identify a value added assumption or way we think about to create value in HR. Then I want to talk about briefly the COVID crisis and how it's affecting people everywhere in the world. Those two themes give me a context. Then I want to say, how does HR respond? And I want to talk about 5 principles. I want to talk about 3 deliverables and 2 agendas. And again, 5 principles that we should do to respond to this crisis in future, 3 things we deliver, and 2 HR agendas that we should understand. I'm going to cover a lot of material. And as I said, you can get access to the slides on this QR code if you want to take a picture of it and copy it, or we'll go through the material and hopefully give you 1 or 2 ideas. The hope is to give you some things that will be helpful in a very concrete way. So let's start with the question about the context and mental model. What's the most important thing that HR can give an employee? It's a very simple question. Um, and let me give you a little test. I've often done a poll, but I don't do that anymore because the answers are always the same. What's the most important thing my organization can give our employees? A sense of belief, meaning, purpose. Number 2, an ability to become better. Number 3, a sense of belonging, community, all of the above. Number 4, or number 5, none of the above. Believe, become, belong, all the above or none of the above. What everybody answers, usually 70 to 80%, is number 4, all of the above. And they're wrong. The most important thing we can give an employee as an HR professional is an organization that succeeds in the marketplace. Believe, become, and belong are all critical things, and I will talk about them. But unless and until they help us succeed in the marketplace, there is no workplace. And without a workplace that's successful, the marketplace, there is no believe, become, and belong. I've talked with many colleagues right now in this crisis, and about half of the companies I work with are going through enormous stress and demands in airlines, in lodging, in service, in food, in advisory service, in education. And unless you succeed in the marketplace, there is no workplace. And so that mindset, outside in is what we call it, becomes a key assumption for HR. I did a session last week on what's new in employee experience. And the major message is that employee experience has to link to customer experience and to investor experience and to community experience. Because unless an organization succeeds in the marketplace, there is no organization. Now, that's so dominant. And sometimes I think in HR, we think success in the marketplace is simply financial. We have to make money. It's not just about money, it's about serving customers and investors. That fundamental assumption changes the way we think. And so I love to ask HR people, who are my customers or my stakeholders? Who is it we serve in HR? And almost always the answer I get from HR people is we serve those below the line. We serve our employees. We help them be productive and competent and committed. We serve our line managers. We help them build strategies that help the company succeed and go forward. But I love to think about above the line. Who do we serve? We serve the real customers of our company. If our work in HR does not create value for our customers, there's no more company. Who are the customers? How do we build connection with them? In other words, are we hiring people today who our customers will be delighted with? Are we training people so that they serve our customers? We also have to serve above the line the investors, either the debt holders who have debt, the equity holders who may own stock, or the corporate parents who may be investors in the company. Are they getting value? We have to serve our citizenship, the community where we live and where we work, our planet, our community. And we need to be able to be collaborative with our partners. Our job in HR is not only to do service below the line inside the company, but above the line outside. That is a fundamental assumption. And that fundamental assumption changes the way we think about HR. HR's fundamental view is that we add value to those outside the company, not just inside. So, what does that mean given this current crisis? Wherever we are in the world, we could be in Hungary, we could be in Europe. I've done seminars with Nepal, I've done seminars in Sri Lanka, I've done seminars in Russia, I've done seminars in Indonesia, in Brazil, in the United States. Anywhere in the world, we are affected by this pandemic. Probably never in the world in the last 100 years have we seen one item be so dramatic around the entire world. And I see all these headlines over the last 12 weeks, and I'm having to learn new words. Before July or before February of this year, I didn't know what community spread meant, or quarantine, or really epidemic, or flattening the curve. All of these words and terms have created a new reality for us, a new sense of what we have to learn and do. And that outside in logic is getting even more real. We've begun to discover in this crisis, and in almost any crisis, there's four stages. Think about an accident on the highway. I'm driving down the highway and I see in front of me a horrible accident. In the first stage, we do first aid and respond. We react quickly, we stop the bleeding, we respond, we do what's called triage. Then the ambulance comes and takes the injured person to a hospital. Here we do recover. We do recovery. We get emotional support. We get expert solutions. We get deep expertise. We begin the process of recovery. And then we go home again. And we try to embed a new normal. We reinvent. Sometimes we have to change our identity. If the accident was traumatic and you lost a limb or an arm or your eyesight, you've got to get a new identity in your handicap state. Other times we just have to adapt to new insights. A close friend of mine about a week and a half ago fell off a ladder. He had to have back surgery. He's coming home. He has to change his identity a little bit. He can't do what he did before because of his back surgery. And he's got to adapt his lifestyle. And he's got to learn to reinvent who he is. In that stage of a crisis, we've seen that in the corona crisis. We responded in January, February, March by working at home, doing things in a different way. We're now worked on recovery. How do we organize and manage our work? And now we're in the process of moving to reinvention, reimagining a new normal and what we can begin to do. So here's the logic: context. I really like the concept or phrase content is king. Content is what I know how to do, staffing, training, culture in human resources. The context is the kingdom in which that occurs. Staffing is very different in a growth business versus a declining business. In a growth business, I have to hire new people. One of my friends became the head of human resources at Zoom last November. What great timing to go to Zoom. In Zoom, we're doing this call through Zoom, and Zoom is everywhere right now. It's pervasive. She's having to do staffing to hire people, to bring people in, to train them quickly and to adapt and grow. Another of my friends is in a business in the airline industry. For them, staffing means declining. The content of staffing is critical. The context is where we apply those ideas. So here's the question: how do we respond to the corona or another crisis as individuals, as leaders, as organizations? As we go through these four stages or three stages: respond, recover, reinvent. How do we reinvent? On the one hand, we can see this crisis as a threat. Here's what's wrong: there's an emotional trauma. We have emotional fear and anxiety. We're hopeless, cynical, organizational conditions of psychological malaise, of strategic haze. We don't know what to do. Leadership disoriented, desperate. Or do we discover in this crisis opportunity? Focus on our strengths, focus on what's right. Instead of individual emotions of fear and anxiety, have emotions of hope and anticipation. Instead of organizational conditions of malaise and haze, have organizational conditions of emotional well being and strategic focus. Instead of leadership actions of disorientation, have actions of empowering others. How do we discover that? That's what we want to talk about. The discovery of those opportunities is not new. I see people who are saying, I just discovered a new normal. I believe in that. But let me give some background. I'm obviously older. I've been in this business for many, many years and even decades. I'm going to show you the benefit of working at home. This is a copy of my dissertation from 1982, before many people were born. My dissertation is a numerical taxonomy. What taxonomy means is the science of simplicity with statistics. So I studied 670 companies in the United States and 144 in Japan. And I collected statistics about those companies, what they do and how they operate. And you can see the dissertation is all about statistics, trying to find simple solutions of how industries worked. The dissertation is about numerical taxonomy and how to evolve companies and help them succeed. By the way, as part of that dissertation, and again, I can't show this if I were visiting, but this is the company called University Microfilms sold dissertations, and they put them available for sale. And the dissertation that I did, that's here, made me $11.85. So I spent 2 years doing research and made $11.85. That's not very good return for the research that we've done. Well, since that time in 1982, we have enjoyed doing research. We've done research on people and talent. We've done research with 450 global companies, mostly in Asia, and written books with hundreds of interventions on talent. We've done research on leadership. Fortune magazine published a study called Top Companies for Leadership. We collected 3 rounds of data with 500 companies in each round. We have over 30,000 respondents in our data set and done interventions with hundreds and hundreds of organizations in 10 books on leadership and its impact. We've done work on organizations. We have data from recently 1,200 organizations on how they organize and what they do, and have 10 books on reorganizing. And we've done books on human resources. We've done a 30-year study with 7 rounds of research with over 120,000 respondents of how HR can respond, and dozens of books on HR. Why do I go through that? Because when I want to discover opportunity, it's not just something I just thought about. It's something myself and our colleagues have deeply, deeply studied. Now, we use that foundation to anticipate and predict what's next, but we build on research. Somebody I connected with on LinkedIn recently said, I've done research as well. And I said, what's your sample? And the person said, I interviewed or I collected data from 20 of my friends on LinkedIn. And here's what they said. Well, to be really honest, that's great information. It's great insight, but it's not research based. In the HR field, there are folks who are even very thoughtful who say, here's the competencies for HR going forward. Here's the platform of competencies and how they work. And I've gone back and said, where's the research? What data do you have to validate that those are the right competencies? We need research on the platform to go forward. Now, with that research, I'm going to suggest 5 principles, 3 deliverables, and 2 agendas. So I've started by setting the foundation. We have to change the way we think outside in. The COVID crisis, we have to reinvent how we respond. So what I'm going to do is prepare for you a Rubik's Cube. And I know I'm not an expert in Rubik's Cube, but it's simple. And remember, my dissertation 40 years ago was on taxonomy. How do you make something relatively simple? And so taxonomy is the science of simplicity. How do we make things simple so that we can understand the simple things that we need to do? And I'm going to have 3 dimensions of my Rubik's Cube: principles, deliverables, and actions. I believe in this new future based on our work, we're going to have 5 principles we need to manage. Number 1, we have to personalize and customize. Out of this pandemic and crisis, we've learned that everybody is a little bit different. Um, I'll show you a picture that I can't very often show because I'm in workshops in person. But here's a picture of our family. There's a beautiful wife. There's me. There's children, children, and children. We have 3 children. And at this point, we had, I think, 8 grandchildren. This crisis has affected each of us so differently. So differently. One of our daughters has 2 children. Where is she? There she is. Beautiful daughter with husband and 2 children. She has had to homeschool her children in the United States. So instead of being at school, they stayed home. She found the homeschool was very complicated, very demanding, and she was under pressure because her children were with her full time, and it affected her service. She was involved with some very important contributions in philanthropy. It affected her dramatically. Another daughter, it affected her very dramatically. She also had 3 children. This is one of the children. And she stayed home and enjoyed some of the training and work that she did. Another child, our son, they had 5 children. He decided to go to work every day and to continue his work, and his wife stayed home and watched. On the other hand, my wife and I, obviously, we're older. You're in our home. You see some of our home. We didn't have the same impact because we had more freedom, more flexibility. In fact, I've seen some surveys of companies. How does working at home work for you? And the answer is very dramatically. Older people like myself that have a larger home, we don't have children at home. We like working at home. We don't have to drive. We don't have to commute. Younger people with children at home don't like it as much. They're not in the office. They're not making connections. When we go back to the traditional work office, find ways to personalize work, Find ways to customize work. As we go back to the office, listen to people, personalize, make it personal. Number two, redefine the boundaries of work. There's a story told of some man who's cutting bricks, and they say to the man, "What are you doing?" "I'm laying bricks." Second man, "What are you doing?" "I'm putting up a wall." The third man, "What are you doing?" "I'm building a cathedral to my God." Each of those three people were doing the same activity, but they saw it differently. Well, what does that mean for us as we move and reinvent out of the coronavirus? Here's what it means. We're working at home. What am I doing? I'm working at home. What am I doing? I'm putting up a wall. I'm solving problems. What am I doing? I'm building a cathedral. I'm creating value for my customers. Conceptually, what principle two means is I redefine the boundaries of work. Traditionally, we go to work. We are at work and we go home from work. Work is a place. Now, the boundaries of work are the values of how we interpret the place. So, no matter where I work in the future, it could be at home, it could be in an office, it could be in a remote office. One person said that she pulled off to the side of the road and sat in her car and watched the webinar. Another person said, "I work in a coffee shop." It doesn't matter where you work, as long as your values of creating value for your customer exist. So, the rhetorical question we should ask every day is, what did I do today that helped a customer be successful? And if you didn't have an answer for that, you didn't work today. Doesn't matter where you are, in your car, in a coffee shop, at home, in a traditional office. What did I do today that created value for a customer? The boundaries of work have moved from the place to the values and the value that we create for others. This is a fundamental shift. People say, "What's the new normal?" We don't know where work will be. It will be all kinds of places, but it's going to be still bounded by the value we create for our customers. Principle three, I love the idea of paradox. How do we handle tension? Paradox is sometimes an oxymoron, and again, the language is difficult, but big baby, deafening silence, jumbo shrimp, open secret, passively aggressive, things that seem opposed to each other. Some of these statements I think are cute. Number one, modern dancing is so old fashioned. Number three, from Winston Churchill, a joke is an extremely serious issue. Number four, Dolly Parton, who's an American actress who wears a lot of makeup, you'd be surprised how much it costs to look this cheap. All of these statements are clever. They're paradoxes. I believe in the world we live in today, in the coronavirus, we have to learn to navigate paradoxes. And it's as if there's a road with two guardrails. We have to be able to move between those two guardrails and do two things simultaneously. On the one hand, we have to care for the individual. I've seen some people say, all that we have to do is care for people. If we don't care for people, your company is not successful. True and incomplete. We also have to attend to the organization. The individual will be my fingers, the organization will be the fist. You have to do both. If you care for the individual and don't care about the organization, there's no organization and no more individuals. If you care only about the organization and not about people, neither will succeed over time. How do we manage between those guardrails? How are we bold in short term? I make a decision, I make an action, but how do we make sure they're connected to our long term values? We have to make sure that the short term is connected to the long term. A business team I worked with, I said, what are the short term decisions this team has to make? This was in early in the crisis, in the next 1, 3, and 5 weeks. And they came up with them. How do we now make those decisions consistent with the long term values of the company? We navigate that tension. In this crisis, we have to converge. How do we focus? How do we prune a tree? And we have to diverge. How do we see new opportunities? in worlds of uncertainty are the times when organizations create innovation and do new things. How are we resilient? By looking back. I'm learning, I'm growing, I have grit. And how are we aspirational to predict and celebrate and create the future? All of those tensions, and I could add others, top down, bottom up. How do we navigate those tensions? That's one of the crises. And we've come up with 4 or 5 simple ideas that those of us in HR should do and our business leaders should do. Number one, we deal with complexity. We see both sides of an issue. How do we learn? How do we see both sides? Number two, we are socially endearing. We are able to disagree without being disagreeable. We're able to engage with each other and respect differences. Number three, we're socially connected. We can spend time with people who are not like us, who think differently. We begin to respect and value differences. In the United States right now, with some social unrest around racism, we need to learn to be socially connected with each other in huge ways. Number four, we need to be personally aware. What are my predispositions? For example, I tend to be a strong introvert. Until this crisis hit, I would almost never, and I don't like to show videos of myself. But now this crisis has hit, I know that's a predisposition to be an introvert, to be private. But now I welcome you into my home and I show pictures of my home and how it is. We have to know our predispositions and move beyond. And finally, if we're going to navigate paradox, we need to have a strong set of values. What do we believe in that we can act on to move forward? Principle number 4 is a fascinating one for me. And again, I know I'm covering a lot of material. But in this world, I hear a lot of people saying, here's the new normal. We're all going to work at home. Here's the new normal. We're all going to do this. I think that's false hope. We try to get around uncertainty by promising the future. It's not true. And you notice the left-hand side, the false hope, the ribbon is undone because we don't know. This crisis will be over on Easter. This crisis will be over June 30th. We just don't know. On the other hand, we people say, I give up and I'm now hopeless because I don't have hope. I give up, I give in. Our job in HR is to harness that uncertainty, to not have false hope and to not be hopeless. Realistic optimism. How do I harness the uncertainty? How do I use uncertainty as an inflection point for reinvention? Out of crises comes most of the inventions and creations in our world. How do we create a positive future between those? I won't bore you with this. I encourage you to go on LinkedIn and find the article. But we can harness uncertainty by taming our fears. What am I afraid of? What am I worried about? Tame those apprehensions. We can harness uncertainty by envisioning a future. What will success look like? What would I like it to become? Even though I don't know, there's not a clear answer. We can regulate our expectations. When we run into an uncertain world, we're never going to be perfectly successful. We can experiment, focus on what I can control, innovate, try. We can have information to guide choices, I'll talk about in just a minute. And we can join with others who also have uncertainty and share and collaborate and learn. And finally, principle 5. Out of this coronavirus and the future of HR is to seek guidance. For me, this is one of the most powerful ideas that I think we see facing the HR field today. I love the term guidance. When I was much younger, doing my research and early wed and dissertation, I went to a guidance counselor. My guidance counselor gave me some tests and some interviews about what is it you want? What are your strengths, your passion, your interest, and laid out for me some career options. And then the guidance counselor told me some pathways that might lead me to those aspirations. Now, later in life, I can go to a guidance counselor on retirement. And my retirement guidance is, what will retirement look like for you? Frankly, for me, retirement probably won't happen. I really enjoy my job. At the bottom left, we get guidance through technology. The cell phones we have, the instruments we have provide guidance. My phone is a guidance system for my health. It is now time in our field, because of the research we and others have done, to provide organizational guidance. To succeed in my organization, I need to do financial, strategic, and technological things. But I've got to build the organization in red that gets there. Now in green, there's 4 pathways for guidance. At the rbl.ai, we have now put those pathways into a technology enabled guidance system that you can go on rbl.ai and get guidance for what your organization should do in talent, in leadership, in organization capability, and in human resources to be successful. Whoa, take a deep breath. I've just laid out at the high end for HR's future value creation, we have a fundamental assumption. We have to think and add value outside in. The corona crisis changes that. We have to have 5 value or principles. I'm going to ask Gurge or Gurge. I can't remember how to say your name. I'm very sorry. I've read your name. We've emailed. Are there any questions at this point that have come through the chat room just by chance? I'm taking a deep breath because I know I've covered a lot, and we'll take 2 or 3, maybe 2 questions if they're there.
Yeah. Hi everyone. There is only one question right now,
That's great.
and good morning. Would you say that under this model, employees and line managers should be seen as means to meet HRK stakeholders' expectations? If we can go back to the model,
Yeah.
we have a question.
The answer is yes, that HR professionals and line managers should be working together to meet the needs of customers, investors, and external communities. And when they work together, they are successful. I've often been asked, in fact, when I taught an MBA class, a class in business at the university, I had a final exam, and it was a multiple choice exam. And this is one of my favorite questions ever. Who has primary accountability and responsibility for talent, organization, and leadership, the HR issues in a company? Who has primary accountability, responsibility for talent, leadership, and organization in a company? A, the line manager. B, the manager of HR. C, it's shared. D, the consultant. E, I don't care. I'm going into finance. What a fun question. Almost everybody answered A, line manager, B, HR, C, it's shared, D, I don't care, or D, the consultant, which is what I do, or E, I don't care, I'm going into finance. Most people answered C, it's shared, and they're wrong. I believe the primary accountability for talent, organization, and leadership, the HR deliverables, is A, the line manager. And HR works with that manager to create our ideas and tools that will help make that happen. So, uh, Gerge, and say your name once more, Gerge. I'm really sorry. I got it. Gerge. Okay, I will not make that mistake again. Gerge, I'm sorry. My name is Dave or David. That's easier. Um, Gerge, what do you see as one of the biggest challenges facing HR with companies you work with in Hungary or Austria or wherever? What do you see as one of the biggest challenges facing HR?
We are working on, to back to the office as business as usual. And this is our main scope to support the whole organization to capable of doing that. So,
Nice, nice. And again, what I suggested in the second principle is to remove the boundaries of work. I don't think it matters as much going back to the office or not going to the office. It matters, what am I doing that creates a value for my customer? And that's the agenda that I'm trying to create. Super. Is it okay if I go ahead and do the next piece of my 3-legged puzzle?
technical, because we are now on stream, and the stream is need 5 seconds to share your screen, and sometimes we are a little bit ahead with with your speech than your slides. So try to have a little bit higher break between
Okay,
moving slides forward.
I will do so. Thank you.
Okay, thank
You
you.
know, we are all learning how to work with the technology, and I'll go a little slower with slides. So I laid out 5 principles. I laid out, thank you, 3 deliverables. Here's the deliverables. Let me, right now my screen is a little frozen, so it's not moving at all. When HR comes to a meeting, in the meeting is somebody from finance who wants to make sure we make money, marketing who wants to make sure we serve customers, technology who wants to make sure that we have systems in place. I believe HR offers 3 insights or 3 deliverables and creates value. One is the individual. Do we have the right talent, workforce, people? Another is the organization, and individual is going to be my fingers. These are the people. My fist is the organization. And number 3 is leadership that combines the individual and the organization. So wherever I am in HR, big company, small company, public sector, private sector, there's 3 things that I deliver: individual talent, organizational capability, and leadership. We've done research. Which of those matters more in driving customer results? Because the goal is outside in, to win in the marketplace. Is it individual or is it organization? When I'm in person with a group, I often have them raise their fingers as individual or their fist as organization. The research we've done has shown 2 to 8. Organization has 8 points, individual gets 2. The organization, the fist, is 4 times as important as the individual in delivering results. That is an amazing finding, because what it suggests is that when I, as an HR professional, come to a business meeting, I suggest, do we have the right individual talent? Do we have the right organization? And do we have the right leadership? So, what's new in talent? It's very interesting. And I'm just going to highlight this very quickly. We've got to have great individuals. Competence. We have to bring in the right people. We have to hire people. We have to find people. We have to source people. And especially, we have to do work that connects people and technology. B, we've got to move people through the organization. We've got to learn and have performance conversations. And C, appropriately, we have to remove and retain people. I put some of the books that we've done on those topics. Um, I think somebody asked me a number of years ago, what's the most important thing HR can do to help a company succeed? Great question. And my joke was, under C, we place our lowest performing employee in our competitor, and we ask that employee to do for them exactly what they've done for us. Now, that's a joke. But if I can place the worst people in my competitor, I win. D, we have to build commitment. Competence, A, B, and C, bringing people in, moving through, and retaining, is critical. It gets your brain, it gets your skills. Commitment is your hands and your feet. Do I show up? Do I work hard? And E is your contribution. And I used before, believe, become, and belong. Why am I working? In the talent space, there are dozens of innovations that will help you succeed in navigating talent. In the organization space, there are also some incredible innovations going on. Those innovations were captured in a book we did, and I'll hold up the book. This is the book called Reinventing the Organization. Arthur Young is the key author, and then myself. This is the story that we found that captured what this organization should be, that we in HR helped create and architect. A woman went to the beach, happened to be in the United States in Florida, with her 2 sons and her mother. The 2 boys got in the water. They got caught in a riptide. They were pulled out into the ocean. And everyone I've talked to says riptides are incredibly threatening and dangerous. The mother jumped in, the grandmother jumped in, and 3 or 4 people from the ocean jumped in. Suddenly, There's 7 or 8 people caught in a riptide. If you notice, and you can look at the YouTube, within 3 minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, 80 people joined hands or they joined arms and they formed a human chain and they rescued those people. What a great story. So, what conceptually just happened? Those people came together as individuals, the fingers, and they created a great organization or a human chain that accomplished its purpose of rescuing those people. How do you scale that? How do we take that simple experience and do that in a big organization? So Arthur Young and I did a book where we said that's not about high. I've got to go slowly. I've got to count to five so I show things and show. That's not about hierarchy. Those people didn't say who's the boss, who fits what role. It's not even about systems. They didn't stop and say, what's our strategy? What's our structure? What are the incentives? That's reorganizing work with McKinsey and Jay Galbraith. It's not about our capabilities. What are we good at as an organization? But it's about building a market oriented, focused on solving a market problem, in this case, rescuing people, ecosystem. Coming together quickly. We drew that as a platform with teams, and we identified companies that were successful at doing it. And in the book, we look at companies like Tencent, Alibaba, Huawei, Haier in China, Supercell in Europe, Amazon, um, Facebook, Google in the United States. These companies seem to do 6 things well. They understood their environment, they understood their context, they had a clear strategy. What do we do to win in this environment? They had a clear set of capabilities that they were good at around agility and speed, around innovation, around customer centricity, around information asymmetry. They built a morphology or structure that allowed them to move in and out of market opportunities. They governed and built a great culture, and they did wonderful leadership. So, our job in HR, when we come to a business meeting, is to say, do we have the right talent? Competence, commitment, contribution. Do we have the right organization? Those 6 principles. Can we reinvent our organization to make it successful? And third, do we have the right leadership? Leadership is about building a brand, it's about building an identity. It's about the leadership brand representing what we want to be known for in the marketplace. I really love the metaphor of brand because brand is an identity, it's an image. Companies have brand and product brand. About 15 or 20 years ago, my wife and I left our careers and we went to do service for a Christian church in Canada, in Montreal. When we went, one of my close friends, Wayne Brockbank, I'll actually name him, gave me a pen. And he said, Dave, use this pen in your role as a church leader doing a mission in Montreal. By the way, this is a Mont Blanc pen. It's a very powerful and cool brand. And the brand has meaning. It's powerful, it's cool. But what's meaningful for me with this pen is not just that it's a wonderful pen that I can write with, but it has an emotional appeal because when I look at this pen, I think of my friend and I see my friend and the emotional connection I have with my friend. Brands have an emotional appeal. They make sense to us in an emotional way. Um, I'm trying to think of other things I have that are branded around me. Um, I can't, well, I have a watch. I'll tell a quick story. My father, I'll tell another quick story. Um, my children gave me a book as when I was a grandfather about my father that I could read to my grandchildren. So this is a book and it said, this is your great grandpa Ulrich. And this is how he dressed and what he looked like. Um, this is my father driving his truck. And almost every day when he was retired, he would drive his truck and pick up food. And he would pick up food from the stores that was left over and take it to those in shelters and those in need. When I got my PhD, I was the only PhD in my family. My father gave me a gift of a Timex watch. And he said, Dave, you have a PhD. And I've written books, I've given talks. Today I'm doing a talk sponsored by Hello HR through Hungary, through people around the world, through YouTube and elsewhere. And my father said, Dave, you're going to be excited to give talks, but look at your watch. And remember that I love you as a father, not because of your PhD or because of your books or your professional success. I love you because you're a good son. You're a good father. You're a good husband. You have good character. By the way, so the Timex watch is now a brand. It's an image for me to remind me of what matters most. When our son finished his PhD, it's our son, he finished his PhD, I also got him a Timex watch. And I told him the story. And he said, Dad, you are very cheap. And I am. And I said, so was your grandfather. He drove an old truck. He dressed this way. And by the way, that's the back of the book. That's my grandfather sleeping. And now I sleep like that. It's good to be cheap. Build a brand. Get your leaders to have a brand of what they can do. And we've written a book called Leadership Brand, and I won't take you through the 6 steps, but you can build a brand. Make sure that as leaders, we build a brand, or as HR professionals, we build a leadership brand. I just looked at my Timex watch and I have about 8 minutes left. So let me summarize. The world's changing. What does the future of HR look like? 5 principles: personalize, redefine boundaries, navigate paradox, harness uncertainty, provide guidance. We have 3 deliverables: talent, organization, and leadership. And we have 2 HR implications: build a great HR department and have HR competencies. We have studied HR departments for 30 years. Over the last 20 years, we've written a number of books about what makes an effective HR department. You design the HR organization, you change to meet needs, you transform, you add do HR value, you do HR outside in, and ultimately we create victory through organization. As we've looked at that evolution, we have now identified 9 domains of an effective HR department. Lots of people, when they want to build a good HR department, they focus on row 4. How should we be organized? Centers of expertise, shared services, technology. We discovered that there's 9 rows that we should pay attention to. Good HR is not just the structure. Number 1, what's our reputation? What are we known for? Number 2, who are our HR customers? Who do we serve? Who do we create value for? Number 3, what is our HR mission? Number 4, are we organized to deliver that? Critical. But number 5, are we creating the right organizations for the business? Remember, organization had 4 times the impact of individual an organization. Number 6, have we got great analytics? We call it guidance. Number 7, have we integrated and deployed our HR practices? Number 8, do we have great HR people? I'll talk about. And number 9, do we work well with each other? When we can do those 9 things well, we have created a great HR department. So the 8th item, or the final message in my message, is what are the competencies we need to succeed? As I mentioned earlier, we've studied this for 30 years. In the last round of research, we identified 9 competencies. We need to have the foundation enablers: compliance, make sure things happen; analytics, collect data that makes a difference; technology, use technology and digital, critical. We need strategic enablers: change culture, build human capital, create total rewards. But in the middle are the 3 competencies that are most critical for creating value. In red, we need to be a credible activist, build trust, be credible, and have a point of view. In blue, we need to be a strategic positioner, know how to position our business to win in the marketplace. And in the middle, I talked about it before, we need to navigate paradox to manage that duality of short-term, long-term, top-down, bottom-up, individual, organization. Those three skill sets are the most critical for our success. And as we look forward, we are engaged in new study. We hope you'll join us. We were going to do it in March of this year. We may do it now in the fall. We believe there's some emerging competencies for HR: information asymmetry, beginning to collect information that makes a difference in results, separating signal from noise. There's an overwhelming amount of ideas. What are the most critical for today? Providing guidance. I mentioned it. RBL.ai. We can get guidance around the right talent, the right leadership, anticipatory solutions, and responding quickly, and social citizenship. Wow. I have covered a lot. Grigay, I hope I got it right. Let me summarize and then see if there are any questions, and I'll take 1 minute at the end. I want to give you some ideas that will create HR's future and have impact. I start by rethinking our assumptions of HR. HR is not about HR. It's about outside in and success in the marketplace. The jolt of the virus and the stages of the crisis require that we change. 5 principles if we're going to make progress. The very simple principles of personalization, boundary list, where we work, uncertainty, paradox, and guidance. We have to deliver 3 things: talent, leadership, and organization to all stakeholders. And we have to improve our HR department and our HR professionals. With that, Grigay, questions, comments that may have come through. We have just time for one or two, and then I'll wrap up. Oops.
Thank you, Dave. I cannot see any question right now. I kindly ask the audience that is there any question? If yes, please write on the comment section, and we can select those ones.
I didn't see any. Let me just. I ask you what the challenge is. What Gergely gives you hope about the HR world going forward, especially in Hungary where you work or elsewhere in Eastern Europe? What gives you hope about HR?
Uh, for, I hope that during this next period, as HR, we are spending more time on professionalism. I mean that we need to reshape our processes or something like that, or we need to rethink our position within the organization. You know, it's a kind of good chance for everyone who is working in HR that we need to be a really strategic positioner, for example. We
Nice,
can give
nice.
very good advice and recommendation to the directors and business lead to run the business forward. I think so.
Very kind. Thank you. I hope there are one or two ideas on this one-page summary that you and others can use that will turn the idea into an impact and create a better HR. So let me end again by thanking you for hosting me. And I love to end with 5 words: the best is yet ahead. I like to ask people, what's the best year of your life? And some people say, when I was young and 4, 5, and 6 and playful. I was in in middle school, 15, 16, 17. I was in university. The year I got married, one person said to me, the year I got divorced. And that's probably not a good answer. Here's my answer: I believe the best year of your life is the next 12 months. The best is yet ahead. I hope I've given you some ideas that will help make that happen. And I said I'd end by giving you the slides. Again, you can get copies of the slides on this QR code or go to this website. And I hope these slides will give you some things that will help you make the next 12 months the best year. And I hope you'll follow me on LinkedIn. I post every week on LinkedIn. Um, I'm going to post tomorrow a short essay, 150 words, of a mistake I made last week twice. You'll have to see what that mistake is. I made the same mistake twice, and I'll share that mistake so that I can learn from my mistakes as well. But thank you again, Gergely. I really appreciate it, and I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dave. Before I close the event, there is one more question, and Petra is would like to know that how do you see HR's role in creating modern future organizations, more contracted and less strongly associated employees? What do you think, Dave?
Great question. I talked about the personalizing the future of work not by place. I see the future of physical work being an ecosystem. Somebody may be working at home. Somebody may be a contract employee or a full time. Somebody may be working in a coffee shop, in a traditional office, or in a remote office. The connecting lines between those people, full time, part time, contract, not contract, is our commitment to serving customers. No matter where we are, if we're not serving customers, we're not creating value. And so I worry a bit less about full time, part time. If you're full time, if you're part time, if you're contract, if you're full time, as long as we share a commitment to adding value to the customers, then the organization is working effectively.
Thank you, Dave. So I would like to thank all the audience, but unfortunately we don't have any more time to answer more questions. I would like to also say a big thank you to Dave for joining us today, sharing his thoughts, answering questions, and his effort to help us reach another level. I hope you all enjoyed this webinar and that it will be the first of many in the future. Please do not forget to subscribe as this will allow the channel to reach many HR professionals all around the world. Take care, after yourself and stay with us, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next webinar.